Open world games offer the vastest content on mobiles. You get the most freedom without actually having to get stuck on the storyline. You can find open world mechanics in almost anything: role-playing games, adventures, shooters, and etc. That being said, today we've actually managed to round up a list of some of the best of all time open world single player and offline games you can play on the go right now. Firstly, if you didn't know this, we get police simulation games on mobiles more than a dozen every month. Only a handful of them, however, pass the quality tests, and even fewer pass the vibe check. Police Sim 2022 is at the moment the finest police sim game on both the Google and the App Store. It's a huge in scale, takes you about 1.5 gigabytes of storage, and what it offers is super visual fidelity and a first and third person view. It's a free game and has a lot of missions to keep you busy. It's free. Next up on our list, we have Grand Gangsta Miami. Pretty similar to Grand Theft Auto games, almost a mishmash of San Andreas and Grand Theft Auto 5. This is the open world gangsta life sim set in Miami. Some of you might actually remember this game from a few years ago, which was taken down with millions of downloads, but Grand Gangsta Miami was put back on the Play Store with all of its previously released content and even more. You can drive, perform, shoot folks all you want, and buy houses. Number 3, we've got of course Payback 2. The reason Payback here is in the list is because this game just received an award for being the most downloaded and critically positively rated action-adventure free-to-play game on the Play Store. I mean, for the 200 megabytes initially this is asking for, it offers an infinite amount of content. It's playable both online and offline, although more fun in online multiplayer. There's lots of mods, very unique guns and cars. You can play it in a single-player campaign or with friends. You probably know this if you own an iPhone 15 or an iPod, but you could play Death Stranding on the go on the Apple Store. For $20 and 77 gigabytes of storage requirements, you'll be pretty good to go, having fun with the most graphically demanding mobile game ever made. Well, Death Stranding's got to be the future of mobile gaming and one of the last things we suspected to happen on mobiles. The game is a stealth action open world adventure and a horror game. Number 5, we have Deer Simulator. Literal number 1 most positively received free-to-play sim game on the Play Store, which is now downloaded over 5 million times. This game is an open-world adventure, and if you missed out on its formerly PC original release, it's actually an even more famous game than the Goat Simulators. We believe the best thing about Deer Sim is that you can play it offline. It's about 300 megabytes in total, very well compressed game, huge in scale and the most fun to play game in the list, also the most funny. Not our most proud recommendation, but if you've ever wished to play something like Red Dead on mobiles, and we realize Rockstar decided to never do that, your closest option would probably be what we have here, Guns and Spurs 2. It's actually an open world third-person shooter set in a decently vast world with a good amount of missions to keep you wandering for a while. It's offline, tad buggy, could use an update for all, and for the less than 200 megabytes of storage requirement, it offers really good graphics. We have mentioned Car Sim San Andreas before, but we still believe it's the finest San Andreas and realistic racing game cloned off of Grand Theft Auto series that sits on the Play Store. It's definitely a neck and a head above any game in the list compared to even Gangsta Vegas games in graphics, handling, physics. Frankly, it's mind-blowing how well this game works on low-end devices with such graphics and just 350 megabytes of storage requirement. We'll give it a 20 out of 10. It's an offline game all the way. Mad Out 2 Big City Online was pretty much all about committing just crimes. You're free to do whatever you want and you don't have to do that online, even though the title suggests. However, it's even better if you hop in on the online fun and destroy other players. What's so great about Mad Out is that, considering the multiplayer, you will absolutely have a blast just finishing the game's missions in offline. The graphics and gameplay are also both pretty solid. You can choose over 50 different cars with different abilities to play with. probably one of my all-time favorite open world games that still exists on mobiles. Miami Crime Vice Town is a pretty simple, classic action-adventure that recently developers dropped a new patch for and updated its visuals much more. There's a new map, smoother controls, new skins, and even more cars to play with, and if I had to compare it with something, it would have to be Grand Theft Auto Vice City. It's got the vibes, except you have more freedom of choice and in-game items. 10 out of 10, period. Coming up behind that, we have another from the same developers of the famous Tokyo Commute Driver, a semi-open world taxi sim, this time just limited to Japan, that plays pretty much like the previous games of its series, and offline or online. It's possibly the most well-compressed game in the list. I mean, with 140 megabytes of storage requirement, this game offers a million missions and a million details more. It's a free game, legit in-game footage over here. You can pick it up only on the Play Store right now. Farm Sim 2024 is now available on both the Google and the App Store, and I already downloaded almost 50,000 times. It's a big game in scale, coming from a big driving and flying game simulator team, offering a farmer life, operating only machines, tractor-combined machines, and eventually taking your crop to the market to sell them and buy better machines with them. This whole thing is just 300 megabytes in total and could just use better graphics. Overall, we give it an 8 out of 10. Quick mention with this one, I believe it's that good of a game that it doesn't really need recognition, even though we've talked about this game numerously on the channel. Turbo Tornado over here is a #1 substitute still that I would recommend if you played CarX games. It's an open world midnight driving and racing. It's right up there in quality with games as big as Need for Speed, the console port, plays entirely offline if you want, and no more than 500 megabytes in total. It's got some of the finest visuals in its own kind, and is sitting on both the Google and the App Store for free. Classic American Muscle Cars 2 is another open world game we're proud to announce, because it actually has a little bit of everything. No matter what you're into, it's mainly a single player game, and the real fun is in its vehicles you get to make and unlock along the way. The customization options are AAA in scale, and there's all the muscle cars that almost ever existed. It gives a huge map considering it's just a 150 megabytes game, and as far as quality goes, it's both realistic and smooth. Definitely a 10 out of 10. If you like the old Euro Truck simulation games, or even better, some time to take off relaxing, Truck Sim Pro USA has been out for like a month and is downloaded about 1 million times already. I mean, only games as big as Apex Legends get this much positive reception upon release, and what you're looking at over here is a professional truck driving open world game, sim, and nothing more. It takes place across most states in the USA, and it's a big game in scale. It's almost 3 gigabytes in scale, and it's huge in content. Go to Streets 2, however, is actually rated a 3 out of 5 on both stores. However, it's still amongst some of the most well-received games of its own kind on the Play Store. It's an open-world live sim racing and action game from a very old team of mobile game developers. You can play it offline entirely, but what you should take into account is that the game is a neck and a head slower in pace, and the characters are just a little hard to control. Other than that, graphics are amazing and driving around the city is pretty neat. Number 16, we've got the one and only legendary Real Gangster Crime. This game works with a controller, just as good as the first game in the list. You just walk around on your feet or on vehicles, and there's literally everything to mess around with. Be it a mech suit, a jetpack, all aspects considered, they're extremely well made and all for just 300 megabytes of storage. Play this one offline, use the controller too, you'll have a blast. One of the most underrated open world mobile games of all time you can find. Absolutely no bugs or option that developers might have missed since the new patch. Real Crime is one of the prime examples of how a mobile game, especially an open world game, should be. It's one of the best substitutes for Grand Theft Auto San Andreas if you've already played it, couldn't afford it. It works offline, easy to control, great graphics, adjustable as much as you want, and it's free all the way. For those of you who haven't tried this one yet, lastly, I actually included this one in my past videos with no commentary, but this time I urge you to give it a try. The game Go Up Parkour, this entry specifically, is probably the finest clone that was released on mobiles, and it's even playable offline. This is in-game footage. I mean, in-game is actually better looking than the trailer over here. The whole thing's in 1 GB in total. It's no longer even a demo, but a parkour-style open-world obstacle-based adventure, which is at the moment in the making for iOS devices as well. That's it.